Connecting your content to real-world applications is crucial if we want to increase student buy-in. All middle and high school teachers know that students always want to know, why do we have to do this? And to be honest, it's a fair question. Too often, teachers default to, it's going to be on the test, you're going to need to know this for next year, it's a part of my curriculum, so I have to teach it. Tying what you are working on in the classroom to things students actually want to know so that they can navigate the world and live the life that they dream of living is one of the best engagement tools I have ever used in my classroom. Not to mention, it empowers students to know that they have power to direct where they're going to go in life. Today, I want to talk about just 4 ideas that you might already be doing in class and the ways that you can connect that into students learning about the real world. And before we jump into this, I want to thank our sponsor, Orcam Learn, for sponsoring this video. Let's go. The first way we do this is something I talk about a lot, and it is one of my absolute favorites. But in getting students to tie who they are and what they think and what they believe into the real world, I find that using a journal is the #1 way to do this. What journals do is have students answer any number of questions that are going to help them get used to and perfect the art of sharing their story in written form and out loud. Doing this every day solidifies to my students that they matter. Their voice matters, their opinion matters, and I want them to own their story because they are important. So we need to practice this skill every day, which by doing something we're already doing anyway, we're connecting who they are to what we're learning in the class every single day. But this in and of itself is not enough. We got to go to #2 to really make this impactful. That's over here. Because your story is important, your words are important as well. I can't have kids just getting good at saying stuff. I have to get them to perfect the art of speaking. And so part of doing that is doing vocab. We do vocab every single day in class. Every Monday's new words, every Friday is an assessment, and then there's all kinds of review techniques during the week. Because I gotta teach my kids to learn how to learn as well, but that's a whole nother video. I want my students, when they speak, to speak eloquently, to have all the words in their arsenal so that they can share their story, their opinions, their feelings, and their ideas. I never want words to be the barrier between them being understood and not being understood. Not having a full vocabulary is like building a house with some pieces. You could build most of the house, it could be pretty safe, might even look nice, but no one's gonna trust it. And without trust, your story, words, opinions, ideas don't matter at all. For those of you that have been following my channel for a while, you know that for the last few years, I have pretty regularly been talking about my favorite piece of classroom technology, and that is Orcam Learn. And for good reason. How many of you have students that are reading on a level that is well below their grade level? How many of you have students that, despite your best efforts and theirs, cannot stay on task while they're reading in class? How many of those students are reluctant to ask for the help that they need because they're too embarrassed that everyone's going to laugh at them in class or judge them? So then the question then becomes, how do we help those students to improve their reading abilities? And the answer is always to meet them where they are with the tools that they need to find the success that they deserve. And the best tool I have found for this is Orcam Learn. And why? Because Orcam is a 2-part learning solution. On the front end, it is a great fit for students, especially those that are neurodivergent or emerging readers with reading differences like dyslexia or ADHD. And it's a web app that is going to give teachers and students and their parents a mountain of data that's going to help them to efficiently and effectively help their students. This handheld device allows students to access printed and digital text from any surface with simple point and click operation. Orcam Learn will measure your students' text difficulty, fluency, reading rate, accuracy, and reading duration. Then using an intuitive web and mobile app, it delivers an instant comprehensive report to your students' progress so parents, teachers, and students can understand where your students are and where they need to be. Click the link below to get more information so that you can help your students grow and learn in ways that they deserve to using Orcam Learn. Which brings me to my third point, which is one of the best ways to get kids to learn vocabulary is to see it used, which is going to take us to reading. So one of the ways that we develop vocabulary is by reading, because if we want to connect it to the real world, reading is someone's real world, right? Someone has been through an experience and they are sharing that experience with you using vocabulary that clearly states what they think, what they feel, what they went through. And reading is like seeing words in the wild when you read. Like they're just there in their natural habitat. You get to participate in this activity. But when students ask, why do we have to do this? One of the things I love talking about, like why this is real world connection. What is that connection there? Is connecting it to the idea that how many folks in the world have come from nothing and because of reading became who they were destined to be. So if we look at autobiographies by Frederick Douglass, by Martin Luther King Jr., by Oprah, by Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, these are folks that our students look up to. These are folks that used reading to get from where they are to where they desire to be. So how do we get kids to read more? I have a whole video on this I'm gonna link below and I'll put it in the cards up here. But ultimately, what it gets down to is one, getting kids books that they want to read. So instead of you choosing the books for your classroom library, maybe allowing students to choose those books, you check off on them and then get them books they want to read. Two is reading with them. Instead of grading and getting other things done that I know you have to do, sitting with your students, taking the time and reading with them models what it's like and lets them know that we're all in this together. And the third thing is constantly talking about reading. We want students to know that we love reading. I love to talk to students about all the books that I've read, all the books that I am reading, all the books that I want to read, showing them my Amazon wish list, constantly talking about my love for this and hoping that that gets them excited too. And without going on too long about this, the second part of this is connecting what you're reading to what students want to do with their lives. So when I think about kids that want to be football players, I'm never gonna crush that dream, but I'm gonna let you know what the average lifespan of an NFL player is in the US. I'm also gonna push you to learn about Shaquille O'Neal's story, Michael Jordan's story, looking at different stories of folks that have been in the league in some way, shape, or form, and then having to learn contracts, having to learn who you can trust, having to learn from people's past experiences so that you can be prepared and stand on their shoulders when you go into what you're going into next. Because the honest part is success leaves clues. Read the blueprint and grow faster and better. Now, what do we do with all this knowledge that we accumulate? Sharing your story, having strong vocabulary, being an efficient and effective reader is important, but then next let's talk about what are we doing with all this stuff that we're learning. That's gonna bring us to number 4. Number 4, active listening skills. I believe that being a good communicator is the best skill that any student can learn, any person can learn. And if you don't believe me, try having a good relationship, a strong marriage, or being efficient and effective in your job if you cannot clearly communicate what you're thinking and feeling at any given moment. But what I need my students to learn is that being a good communicator starts not with talking, but with being a good listener first. So I found the best way to do this is by facilitating conversations about all manner of things in class. So I'm not dictating the conversation. I am facilitating, right? I am not in charge. I'm just making sure that this party keeps moving. And if you're stuck on ideas, the easiest thing to do is to just look at the news, look what's going on in the world, look what's going on in the school, look what's going on in your community, and ask students what they think about those topics. And then the best thing that could happen is kids are going to disagree. And when they disagree, that's when we teach kids how to actively listen to others. Meaning, I have students listen so intently because what they want to do, what often we do as just people, is we are listening to someone till we think of what we want to say, and then we just are like holding our breath until we get to say it. I want my students to listen so intently that they will be able to paraphrase back to the person speaking what they said before they say what they want to say. So for instance, there's a student that believes something different than someone else. They are speaking, and as a facilitator, I will say, Tim, real quick, before you go, can you tell me what Aaron just said? Tim and Aaron have to be able to say back to one another. So what they will often do, what might start kind of coaching my students into, is being able to say, so after someone speaks to them, so what I hear you saying is, and then paraphrasing back to them. Then they use their own voice, their own words, to be able to say back to that individual what they are thinking. And 2 more points about that real quick. It's real important when students are actively listening to someone else, you want them to remember to keep eye contact with that person, and you want them to be mindful of their body language. when you can tell when someone is ready and they want to say something, and it's like they're pretending to listen, but it's all the feelings are happening inside of them. Teach your students, you gotta walk them through how to just be cool, how to just look like you're actively listening, even if you have to exercise that muscle, because what's happening inside of you is madness. It's on the outside. Can we keep our composure? Can we pretend in the beginning to be listening to someone else? Keep eye contact with them. And then when they are finished, then you go back to your saying. So what I hear you saying is you repeat it, and then you can go full force on your side of the argument. If you found this video useful, I have 2 related videos in the description box below. One on students finding their voice, and another one on having difficult conversations with students that I think are really gonna benefit you and your students. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It just helps us to get this to more teachers out in the world. And I'd love to thank our sponsor today, Orcam Learn, for sponsoring this video. Make sure you click the link in the description below to find out more about them and how they can help you and your students. That's it, gang. Peace.